I've just been looking this morning at these extraordinary billboard resist COVID, which you have been doing, and I wanted to ask you to tell me a little bit about these billboards first.
Oh my! Well, I'm really sort of deep in the thick of it. this project. So, as normally happens, I was sitting and talking with a friend, a colleague, and actually not a colleague, but my dear friend. We were having cocktails over Zoom, I think, and sort of thinking about talking about what was happening, what was going on, the effects of COVID-19 on African Americans, Native Americans, Latino Americans. Knowing that was probably going to have like a disproportionate impact on people of color, and just because we know all these other statistics and all these other facts about the lives of the quality of life and the inequality in terms of relationships to healthcare and housing, food, all of these sort of primary issues. And one thing led to another. The next morning, my same friend sent me a proposal about what we should do, and I immediately started crafting the images for a public art campaign, that would be artistically driven. And so I immediately decided to launch it in my home city, the city of Syracuse. And then as a resident of Syracuse and as the first artist in residence at Syracuse University, the university decided to come on board to sort of support my efforts, though I was more than willing to sort of move forward with or without them. It didn't really matter. I just knew that I needed to sort of get this information out to the public. And so I started immediately sort of drafting all of the materials, of selecting the photographs, designing the text, designing the billboards. And then of course, other people started signing on. So it's been a really important project. We launched it for the first time 3 weeks ago. And now a number of cities on the East Coast in particular have signed on to take the project as well. And so it seems to me that, a project like this, and sort of being one of the first artist-driven projects of this nature, with this sort of very, very specific idea, that any number of institutions who are really aware of the fundamental nature of change and who know now seriously that we are really in the throes of massive social upheaval, not only in the United States, but around the world, that this sort of shift and crack has been coming for a long time. And so there are a number of institutions that are really responding, who really want to take the material, use the material, because they understand really what it means, and that that it's absolutely connected to COVID-19, but it's also sadly connected to the killing of George Floyd, which has of course caused an extraordinary uprising of enough. And so it's kind of one of those projects that sort of just hit the nail on the head, right? And then how do you, as an artist, disseminate information? What platforms do you use? And then how do you craft the message, craft the idea, craft the content and its relationship to, this relationship between image and text? So it's been a lot of hard work, and I'm still fine tuning. Even as we've rolled it out, I'm still fine tuning. But it's really a very important project and something that I'm deeply committed to. It's a part of my work, a part of my process.
And it's so important because I have the feeling it's a campaign which is still ongoing, and it's basically involves many different aspects, not only the billboards, because you also do inserts for local newspapers, you do advertising circulars, there is electronic advertising in one, there are tote bags in one. There is a lot of ways actually to bring this message into society. Can you talk a little bit about these many different ways of the campaign? It's an artist campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, again, I thought, of course, I've always been very interested in modes of articulation, modes of distribution. And so and based on another project that I did earlier around violence in the Black community, which is also prevalent and problematic, I learned early on that the importance of sending materials into the home, right? So it's not just a matter of going out and seeing a billboard, but there were a number of ways to sort of activate the project so that you could use inserts that went into the local newspaper that gets delivered to every home. Not the weekly news, not the daily newspaper, but the weekly advertising circular that advertisers themselves use in order to attract attention to their products. So I began using that platform about 10 years ago. And then, of course, we have inserts, we have billboards, we have static billboards, we have electronic billboards, we have buttons, we have stickers for young people, we have door hangers, we have shopping bags, and all of the shopping bags are then delivered to food pantries and food banks here in Syracuse and around the country, where then you can carry the message home. So very beautifully designed shopping bags, recyclable bags that are used so that people, can take those products with them again and again and again and carry the message with them again and again and again. My idea being that if you design something that is not only useful but also beautiful, that people will hold on to it, people will keep it, and people will use it. And so I'm always sort of thinking about qualities of aesthetics along with the message that will hopefully grab attention and allow people to then directly connect with the work. So we are doing materials on buses, on bus shelters, on the backs of buses. It's just, again, thinking about how do you permeate a community and an environment. And then, of course, finally, in one of the things that I came to understand also with the help of some of the advertisers who the advertising company that I approached about my project, they were the ones who actually told me about the weekly circular that ad agencies use, that advertisers use, which I didn't know. And then the other problem was, well, how do I get this material specifically to the most impacted, right? So I don't have a $1 million budget. I have $100,000 budget, right? And everything basically has got to come out of that fund for the city. So then we realized that actually advertisers also target very specific zip codes with very specific kinds of ads. And so we began to use that. I began to use that. So in my neighborhood in Syracuse, New York, I can, go to the areas that are most impacted using 4 distinct zip codes in order to really target the population that's in that area that is the most impacted by COVID-19. And those are Black, Brown, and Native American peoples. So really laying out the strategy and understanding it and working it and connecting with community organizers and community centers, food banks, shelters, mental health agencies. Those have been really important partners as well in this process.
And this artist-driven awareness campaign, which will go to many more cities, in the document you send us, the text, you also say that it's very important that through this recognizable brand, there is basically a trust into the factual information.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Because that seems a very important point.
About trust.
Yeah.
But we've entered such a critical time in our culture where news has been so completely manufactured. It's been so manipulated. We have a president, unfortunately, who tells, several lies a day, and they've been chronicled consistently since he's entered office. And so the sort of disinformation, being aware of these levels of disinformation and how they are coming at us so strongly has been really important. So that, for instance, when President Trump initially started talking about the COVID-19 and the coronavirus, he called it a hoax. Even though there was mass evidence all around, there was a lie. That was a steep lie that has caused thousands upon thousands upon thousands of lives now. So one of the things that we knew that we had to do was to pay attention strictly to the science, to the information that was coming out, to people like Dr. Fauci, to the Center for Disease Control, so that we were always bringing forth trusted and proven information and using that information both on the printed material that we provided, but also on our websites and our web updates. So there has to be a fundamental truth. Even if you're mistaken, there's a difference between making a mistake and telling a lie, right? So sort of, the intent, the intentionality, and the motivation are different. And so we are not scientists. We're not scientists, but we are deeply committed to, me and my partners are deeply committed to providing our community, and again, a community that has been disproportionately impacted by this virus. We've got to bring them serious information. So that, for instance, the vast majority of the virus, for instance, has impacted 72% of the people who've died from COVID-19, for instance, in Chicago, are Black. 80% of the people who've died from COVID-19 in Atlanta are Black. 42% of people that have died from COVID-19 in Minneapolis are Black, right? And of course, amongst, the Navajo population, the community has been decimated. And the same thing is true very much amongst Latino Americans, though amongst those groups also there are these ideas about COVID-19 being a hoax, and or that one can use bleach, garlic, alcohol, hydroxychloroquine, etc. They're all dangerous or not preventative measures as measures for safety. So since we know that that's true, we know that these communities have been impacted by this disinformation and are using it in their daily lives and are being most impacted by it, it became really critical to know that we were dealing with aspects of the truth and information at every turn, and allowing our population, telling our population and our communities about how they were indeed being impacted by this virus. And so it's been an important process, and very difficult and very painful.